True, I will be discussing to you the legislative and administrative issuance governing coal operations in the Philippines. First, we have here the Presidential Decree number 1174, which it amends Presidential Decree number 972 and awards additional incentives to coal operators through the reimbursement of all operating expenses, not exceeding 90% of the gross income after deducing all operating expenses. Likewise, the granting of timber and water rights within the coal contract area and the access to government reserved land subject to applicable laws and guidelines by the concerned agencies. This means that the decree provided operators the right to exploit timber and water sources located inside their coal contract areas, which are required for mining activities such as mine support construction, coal washing, and dust control. Presidential Decree number 1174 also authorized access to government reserved properties, such as forest reserves or public lands, as long as the activities followed existing rules and laws, and also recommendations from relevant agencies. The order increased investor interest in coal production by lowering risk, assuring access to critical resources, and increasing potential exploration and mining regions, in all in all while preserving government control. Pillar number 1, series of 1978, the Coal Mine Safety Rules and Regulations. This circular is a set of rules and regulations promulgated pursuant to Section 9 of Presidential Decree 972. Safety rules are prescribed for underground and surface mine operations covering requirements for exit, escapeways, submission of mine maps, ventilation, allowable limits of toxic and explosive gases, control of coal dust, ground support, rescue organization for emergency situations, fire protection, handling of explosive, health and sanitation facilities, and other miscellaneous safety rules. All holders of coal operating contracts and special operating permits are required to see it that these rules and regulations are compiled with non-compliance with these rules and regulations shall constitute sufficient ground for cancellation of all coal operating contract or special operating permit. This circular also discusses the control of coal dust, which is not only for health problem but can potentially trigger explosion if not controlled properly. It needs the building of ground supports to avoid cave-ins, as well as the development of rescue groups that are educated and prepared to respond to emergency situations. In addition, guidelines are established for fire prevention and suppression as well as the safe storage, transportation, and use of explosives. B. The circular number 1 mandates compliance with the standard for all companies having cooperating contracts or special permissions. Non-compliance is reviewed as a serious offense that may result in the revocation of mining rights, guaranteeing responsibility and discipline among operators. In short, this circular was created to save lives, avert costly tragedies, and foster a culture of safety and accountability in the coal mining business. By codifying particular criteria, it offers a clear framework for balancing coal development with the pressing need to safeguard workers and environment from mining dangers. Bureau of Energy Development Circular Number 81-11-10, Guidelines for Coal Operations in the Philippines. This was issued in 1981 by the Bureau of Energy Development to provide clear procedures and standards for coal exploration and production activities in the country. The circular explains the filing and processing of coal operating contracts or the COCs, including the requirements and papers that operators must provide, as well as the review procedure that the government will conduct prior to approval. It further specified what source of expenses are deemed legitimate operational costs, which is crucial in light of reimbursements incentives provided by the Presidential Decree 972 and 1174. Furthermore, the circular stressed the significance of mine safety and health by establishing precise guidelines for both underground and surface coal mining, as well as ensuring compliance with the current environmental legislation Access to government reserve lands and the use of natural resources such as timber and water were regulated under the framework to ensure proper coordination with other agencies. Furthermore, penalties and administrative sanctions were imposed for violation of these guidelines, but particularly for non-compliance with safety reporting and contractual obligations. In other words, the Bureau of Energy Development Circular number 18-11-10 provide clear rules for coal exploration and production in the Philippines. It explained the process of applying for coal operating contracts, identify what expenses could be considered valid for reimbursement under Presidential Decree 972 and 1174, and emphasize the importance of mine safety, health, and environment compliance. The circular also regulated the use of government lands and natural resources, ensuring proper coordination with agencies. And lastly, it imposed the penalties on operators who failed to follow the safety rules, reporting requirements, and contractual obligations. That will be all. Thank you.